Okay, check two. Okay, now it works. Richard kindly reminded me that last year he was doing the creatives presentation and it was amazing. So now I have a lot of pressure. First time speaker, be kind, please. So the topic today is creatives in Google App campaigns. So what can we see from the data underneath them? And first of all, who is this guy on the stage? My name is Borna. I work in Google since October. I have experience as a product analytical engineer. So I was working with data science pipelines, and I was working with a lot of unstructured and large data sets and kind of finding underlying patterns and finding insights from them. So since I was spending most of my time looking at data, and the rest of the time I would go home and play video games, Google was like, you're a perfect fit for a gaming and apps analytical consultant. And that's basically what I've been doing for the last 6 months. And as I am in the industry now, it is the product which we use most, our clients, are of course app campaigns. And app campaigns, as already mentioned today, they seem like a black box. You don't know what's happening. A lot of things which was usually optimized by the UA teams is now done by the algorithm. But the great thing about the algorithm is that it is trying to find the optimal situation. So which assets to use, which positioning, which placement to use to get you the installs. So the idea of this presentation is basically to get to see that. So what does the algorithm do? Where are the installs coming from based on different genres, different geos, and of course platforms, and kind of see, okay, what can we see from the results? Not going into causes, but look at the results and try to find the reasons why this is happening. Okay, what are some kind of questions you can expect to know after the presentation is, what is the most common character count for text ads in APAC? Or are shorter video ads performing better or worse for genre X? What this presentation won't be is design advice. I'm very aesthetically challenged. I'm not the person to talk about that. It also won't be a genre deep dive, since there's too many combinations and too many variations to go into each one of those. And it also won't be an asset over time evolution, as this requires a lot of time, and this wouldn't be a 20-minute presentation, it would be a 2-hour long presentation. Quick disclaimer also, just because something works and you see a lot of installs coming from somewhere or the IPMs are good, it doesn't mean it's always like that. There's always variations, there's always some kind of special situations which require you to go a bit more deeper into your use case. So your key market, your audience, your genre, of course. And this presentation is more to be, let's say, a starter of thought, so that you know what you can expect or what you can kind of see some interesting trends, and can you replicate them with your own insights and your own Google team and ask for your benchmarks and kind of use that knowledge and this data which we have to improve your creative strategy. So the first thing I want to kind of see in this presentation is basically, do we have a difference between ad formats among platforms? So is the split between ad formats different between Android and iOS, and mainly for genre? So the biggest thing here is that most installs on Android are still coming in form of text. This is due to placement. Google Play is so important still, and text ads, while often neglected, are one of the key drivers of installs. The second big part, or the second big format, is of course video. We talked a lot about video. We saw a lot of examples today. Video is really key, and you can see that it's always bringing at least 15% of the installs, if not more, 20, 30%. And this goes both for Android and for iOS. In iOS, of course, you lose the placement options of Google Play. Apple campaign gets that. So video will become more important, but still you can see, even for games, that Google search as a network is bringing in installs, and it is important. So text ads, still key, video ads, also in iOS, even more important. But what about non-gaming? So we talked a lot about gaming, but what about non-gaming? So for non-gaming apps, we see that text ads are even more important. And this is mainly due to the type of user acquisition which happens. So with most games, it's an impulse install. You see some ad, a video ad, and it looks cool. You want to beat the task. You want to beat the IQ puzzle. And you do it on an impulse. While for non-gaming, there's often intent-based. So you have an intent. You have a problem you want to solve. I want to invest in stocks. Where can I do that? What is the best one? Best stock app on Google Play, let's say. So you have a different kind of user journey to your ad. And this also influences the placements and also the type of assets which are performing well. And this goes also for iOS. So text-heavy, intent-based, it's a different way of approaching these things. So the key insight from these 4 slides, a lot of charts, a lot of colors, you will get them. You don't have to take pictures, I think. Mariusz will share. So in general, we see that video and text is the main driver, both for iOS campaigns and both for also Android campaigns. And since the time limitations, I want to kind of go a little bit more in depth into these two categories and find what we can see from the results. So kind of the first category which we'll discuss is video ads. So the first thing I want to kind of cover is genre overview. So what kind of video duration works for which genre? So what do we see in the splits? And here we see that longer ads, video ads, bring more installs for genres with more complexity in the gameplay. Here we have the example of card games, simulation games, strategy games, role-playing games as well. So any game which has a bit more complexity to it, you need longer time in the ad to kind of showcase that, as we already see that. Like in general, if you have competitive advantage, which is not quick to showcase, you need more time to kind of display that. But what we see also for short formats, that they work very well in popular familiar genres. So we have action games, endless runner games, hidden object games, match 3. So all of these games which are very popular, then everybody knows how they work, and they bring in way more installs through shorter ads. So you can kind of expect that what your gameplay brings, it will also affect the placement. So this is, of course, advertisers are mainly doing ads which are representing their content, and this kind of is seen here, but it also works well. So in general, we see that the IPMs are also quite successful there, and we'll see that in the following slides. So what we can see also in non-gaming is that bumper ads are working extremely well with offer-connected genres. So we already had an example in the morning about fintech, and this also goes for shopping and apparel and fashion genres, where you can kind of showcase a special offer. You have an app-only discount, and this is enough in 6 seconds. So you don't need more than 6 seconds. But also kind of just in general, these shorter videos up to 50 seconds work very well with those type of campaigns. So if in case you have, even if you don't have currently, if you can kind of bring this offer mentality into your product, it's a great option for these shorter and larger, let's say, impression range formats. And what we see also for non-gaming is that most ads are in general shorter, with most of them around 70% being under 20 seconds. So this is kind of a big difference between gaming and non-gaming. The second thing which I want to kind of see is video orientation. So you have a limited amount. Do you want to create every possible variation? Is it enough to just have ads in your own kind of native experience? And what we see is that ads in the same orientation as the gameplay bring in a higher share of installs. So we see action games, card games, sandbox games, shooter games. Most of them are played in landscape, and most of the installs are coming through landscape ads. While the opposite goes for portrait games, so portrait-oriented games. Here, it's kind of this native experience, and we talked about this a lot today. So is it better to have this native gameplay experience where you showcase the gameplay in how it is supposed to be played, or is it better to go misleading and kind of go a different route? I cannot tell you that. It's always something which you have to test out on your own case. But I can tell you that the current situation in the industry is that most people are kind of connecting their creatives heavily based on the content that they are providing. In non-gaming, we see something interesting. We see more square ads. And square ads are a bit of a newer format, and it's coming up in YouTube in different portrait, let's say, use cases. And in non-gaming, square ads are bringing more and more installs. So in case you're not providing square ads yet, it is something to definitely consider and add to your mix. Okay, the last thing on which I wanted to see for video ads is basically a geo overview. So kind of see how the video duration and how the IPMs are across geos. So can we see some markets which are behaving very differently from others? And the first kind of general insight is that in gaming, video ads both carry a lot of installs and have a higher IPM compared to other formats. On the red dotted line, you see the share of installs, and on the blue line, you see basically the relative IPM offset. So how much the how much video IPMs are offsetting from the average of other ad format IPMs. So in the US, video ads are 100% higher than for other ad formats. And you can see basically that across genres where you have high effectiveness of video ads, you also have a higher share, which is in this market. But this is not a key, this is not an always rule. There's exceptions. As you can see for Korea and France, there's a larger share of video ads, but still the effectiveness is not as high. So there is a potential that some markets are more saturated with video ads. So it is something to explore for your genre, and going into talks with your Google team. I want to see how are my competitors working, how are their video IPMs compared to mine, to kind of get this general idea. Should I follow the trends, or should I go opposite because the trends are on a negative spiral in the last quarters? For non-gaming, it's a bit different. So we talked about it already. So we have intent-based user acquisition. So people usually search for things. It's search-heavy genres. So video will not be as performant as in gaming. At the same time, you still have it quite solid in very key markets: Germany, US, Korea. So a lot of very, very key markets for any app are still very positively oriented for video. So video should never be neglected. Even if it is a search-heavy genre, video is key. So now talking about something which I find the most interesting is which markets or which geos are more sensitive or more likely to enjoy shorter video ads. So where they are performing higher. So here we see the relative offset in short video ads, so under 15 seconds, compared to the video average IPM. And you can see that in most developing markets or tier 3 markets, you see that Thailand, Turkey, India, Indonesia, all these volume driving countries, they are performing way better with shorter video ads. So the IPMs are 100 times bigger. So sorry, 100 times, 100% bigger than the average for the video ads. While medium length ads, so between 15 and 30 seconds, perform very well in tier 1 markets and APEC countries. So here you see South Korea, you see Poland, you see France, Italy, Japan, but also you see Philippines, you see Vietnam, Taiwan. So a lot of these interesting things. In these markets, you should provide a bit longer content. So you shouldn't only focus on short or longer contents. But talking about longer contents, this is the most interesting fact for me, is that they're overperforming only in 2 geos, but those geos are very key. So we're talking about US and we're talking about Mexico. So US, nobody needs a reminder, it really is a key market. And Mexico is one of the larger volume driving, but also more and more monetizable markets. So even if long ads are not performing everywhere, they could be performing very well for your genre in one of the key locations. So it is something to explore. Non-gaming again, so we're switching back and forth. In non-gaming, we see that there's a few tier 1 markets which prefer shorter video contents. So here we have Colombia, India, Indonesia, so volume driving, but also France, Italy, Japan. A lot of these kind of key markets, and they prefer shorter video contents, both volume driving like Brazil, but also, like I'm saying, monetizing markets such as France. And medium length has the strongest positive effect compared to the average. So here you see that medium length ads have the highest relative difference, so more than 50%. And there's some very, very key markets again here. United States, Canada, United Kingdom, a lot of these key markets for monetization, both hybrid and just in-app purchases, and they prefer medium length ads. While long ads, again, are underperforming, there's a couple of more positive markets, which are South Korea, France, Spain, so interesting. But in general, when you exclude the outlier Vietnam, it is still a niche thing, and longer video ads will only work in certain situations, which you need to explore and test. So kind of key insights, a lot of charts, a lot of talk, but what you should kind of keep in mind after this presentation. Optimal video length varies based on the content of your app. You want to kind of showcase, if you have more complexity, you want to showcase the complexity. It will probably work better if you do that natively and kind of organically. So optimal video length will vary based on how complex your app is. A native experience in terms of ad to actual gameplay can be beneficial for driving installs, as it already is, we see. And then you need to see, does misleading work better for you, or do you want to provide kind of this normal experience, which is the standard right now? And again, A/B testing, definitely something to keep in mind and do in your creative process right now. And the last thing which I want you to kind of keep in mind is that shorter ads work better for lower tier and volume driving markets. So shorter ads, something to always try to pack in as much flavor of your app into these 10, 15 seconds as we saw in the last presentation. There's amazing examples which you can use and do to achieve that. The second key ad format, as we already talked about, is text ads. So text ads, first thing I want to kind of go through is localization. So it's a big topic. Everybody knows how important it is. And the first thing I want to kind of cover is there a difference between these text language, so if you're using only English or native language, and the IPMs you see there. So in the first insight I want you to know is that multilingual countries where English is one of the official languages, so we have India, Philippines, United States, it is covering the market. So people don't localize, they don't offer any other content except English, which can be a mistake. As you can see in these small little lines in India and United States, there is still some kind of small market which is being attained by different languages. And we'll talk about this a little bit more in later. But in most lower tier markets, accidentally, English is also the main volume driver. And this chart can be very misleading, so be very careful about this. We've kind of have this idea that, okay, we launch in the market with English because it's easier, it's faster. And then the English ads bring a lot of installs. They have larger markets, they have larger learnings. Then later on, when you try to do localizations, it is in general a smaller market which you contain, and it's more niche. So you have to kind of battle more for them, and it's going to be different. It doesn't mean it's not key. Even if it is expensive, even if it is a more of a test market, it doesn't mean it's not key. And you will see that in the IPMs. And you will see that also in the split for tier one markets. Everybody knows how Japan localization is important in Japan. You also can see that it works also very importantly or well for France, South Korea, Germany. All of these markets which are heavily proud of their language, you have to have localized content. It brings more installs. It is way more important. And you can also see that in the IPMs. So in Japan, the IPMs for Japanese language ads are 400% higher than English IPMs. So that's a huge difference. Germany as well, 200%. Mexico, 140, 50. South Korea, 120. But you also see a lot of key markets: Indonesia, Brazil, Turkey, India. It is very, very, very important to provide localized content on your key markets. And it sometimes is a big opportunity missed of this high push or this strong push in the beginning if you don't localize when you're launching. And also one other thing, which is very interesting, is that those little red bars you saw on the first chart, India and the United States, those little niches are converting way better than the regular ads. So in India, it's 50% better, also in the United States. So there's always a small niche market which you can attain with using languages adopted for this market. Non-gaming. Okay, different story. Localization, super important. It brings most of the installs. It is key, and this is also due to the content of the apps. So put yourself in the position of a user. If you're doing a banking app, if you're doing a stock investment app, you have to be very comfortable with putting your money into it and being very secure into the product. If your product is not in the language you want, you're going to lose potential users. And this is also, in general, something we see across many apps. Those type of apps work way better with localized content. And this is something which kind of can be misleading in the ad if the ad is only in local language and then the app is not localized. I know localization of apps is a completely different beast of a topic and it's very difficult, but this is something to keep in mind. Localization is key. And localized ads work very well in non-gaming as well. No shocker. Turkey, Colombia, Germany, India, all of these markets we saw before, again, localization works better than just English ads, and significantly better. So we're not talking about small margins, we're talking about at least 50%. Okay, so we talked about localization, but what about kind of text length? Can you go rambling on in your text ads and kind of hope, okay, I can say whatever I want, they will still care about it and they will not get bored? Of course not. So longer headlines actually bring in more installs for games. So you see that here we're talking about longer headlines as 20 symbols or more. So across all genres, so all geos as well, it's in general better to have longer headlines to kind of grab the attention of the user. At the same time, we have these two outliers, which are not there because of trends or actual user behavior. They are there because of language differences. So here we have South Korean and Japanese, where one symbol can present a whole word. So this is an outlier. Don't be biased by these results here. In contrast, shorter descriptions take more of the overall volume. So we go through all of these kind of markets, and you see, in general, there's not a lot of markets which prefer 60+ symbol descriptions. So in the end, shorter descriptions, while longer headlines are the best combination currently for gaming apps. And there's a similar situation that we see on the gaming side, also on the non-gaming side. Again, longer headlines work better. The Japan, South Korea exceptions, again, don't forget. But also we see that long descriptions work better for non-gaming apps across most countries. So here we have a split difference. So no longer is it, okay, short descriptions, kind of call to action. No, we still need to provide content in the descriptions. So you want to see a bit more explanation why your app is providing the user the need which he wants to satisfy. And this is very important to see, especially because we saw how important text ads and Google Play and in general search networks are for non-gaming apps. Okay, the last thing which I kind of wanted to cover, because this is a lot of talk about geos, but doesn't matter for your genre. Like I have a specific game, maybe my game is completely different than that. So to kind of validate the results we saw in the last two sections, I kind of wanted to see also a genre split. And here we see on the IPM level that across all genres, exception is match 3, a strong exception, something to explore definitely. If you have a match 3 game in your portfolio, test this out. We see that in general, shorter headlines don't perform as well as long headlines. So across most genres, you have a couple of exceptions: dress up and fashion games, match 3, and so on. But most genres will profit from longer headlines. And also the opposite is true for descriptions. Again, so kind of following the story. Shorter is better. For most genres, you have a couple of differences: card games, casual games, simulation games, virtual characters. But in the end, for most genres, in your use cases, it will be better to have shorter descriptions. And on the non-gaming side, we see the same thing. The exceptions here are fantasy sports and sports betting, and also slot machines. And then again, those two are specific, and they're more on the gaming side than they are on the non-gaming side as well. So it's a bit of an exception, and they behave differently compared to other apps in non-gaming. And description is the same thing. So what can we take away from text ads here? The main insight I want you to know is that high converting niches can be found even in English dominated creative markets. So even though in the US you expect everybody speaks English, you don't need Spanish ads, there's still a strong population of Spanish speakers in the US who might convert better. It doesn't matter that they won't convert with English, but maybe some of them will convert because they feel more connected to the ad because it's in their native language. So there is something to keep in mind and try to test out in your strategies. Also, localization is extremely important in APAC and Tier 1 markets. We talk about this for so long, everybody knows this, but also it's important in lower tier markets. You shouldn't neglect it just because it's expensive to localize for some markets. We know how big the growth is in India, how big the growth is in Indonesia, Thailand. So all those markets, localization is kind of key, because if you have a strong launch, you have a completely different dynamic of your app and its life cycle on that market. And you should be doing everything you can before you launch to be in the optimal position to kind of conquer the market. And the last thing, which I think I said this line at least 20 times, longer headlines and shorter descriptions are the key to go for most genres and geos, while longer descriptions will still work for non-gaming apps. So what next? A lot of talk, a lot of charts. I kind of urge you to do kind of these steps. I want you to look through your creatives and see if you have the optimal combination for the placements you see. So if you see that your video orientation, so landscape orientation ads are working well, you kind of know where their placement is, and you know what kind of to expect. Should you kind of focus on this gameplay because you're also in the landscape content-wise as an app? You should kind of look through your creatives. You should reach out to your Google team. So these insights were very generic. They were very broad and kind of gaming, non-gaming, jumping around. It's not something which you can always follow directly, but it is kind of giving you an insight what data we have and what benchmarks we can provide to you and what you can use of that to do your creative strategy. So I urge you to go to your Google team, to contact them, to try to get benchmarks, to try to get best practices across each geo and be in an optimal position when you're launching something. A/B testing. We talked about it so much, I will not bother you anymore with that. And I also urge you to constantly rethink and reimagine. So this is the current split. So you see how the industry is going, and you see it's kind of following some trends across genres, across geos. But there's always a potential to try something new and be different and kind of get this market. Let's say the first ad, which was misleading, maybe it failed. But the evolution of that brought in a whole new trend in the whole industry. You need to try out new things. You cannot be only focusing on what works well for your competition. If you want to be above the competition, if you want to be competitively more advantageous, you need to constantly rethink and reimagine things and test them out. So that's all from me. I hope I didn't bother you too much, and thank you for your attention.
Thank you, Borna. Awesome. We'll take one question because we're a little bit behind time and we need to get everyone caffeinated and then everything. So let's go with, we have 2 thumbs up. Well, that's 20. Okay, we went through videos, maybe text. In which countries localization of creatives is the most important?
Okay, I think there was a slide of that. I don't know. I think you will get the slides later. So in general, we see Germany, very, very important. Korea, very important. Japan. So APAC countries, Germany as well. So you can always think about it, which countries are the most proud, which countries are localizing the movies. I come from Croatia. We don't have any localized movies, not even children's movies. There's always subtitles. So if there's a market which localizes all the context from a very early age, then localization will be more likely important in those markets. So that's a good rule of thumb. I cannot tell you all the markets. You can ask for your genre and geo of interest specifically. But yeah, general rule of thumb, if they localize cartoons and movies, that's a good market.
Nice. That's a great insight. And okay, one last one. I'm not going to do the new one. To which language do we need to localize for India? As there are a lot of languages. Hindi?
So yeah, India is difficult. In general, it's one of the most specific markets, and Richard can confirm that because we have this topic often with our clients. It's very difficult. Hindi is the most popular one of the niches. It doesn't mean it's the optimal one. It depends on the region split. It depends on the users. It is something which you need to test out. A lot of these things are things which we see in the splits, but splits don't mean nothing if your app is not also part of this trend. So you need to test it out. But it is something to keep in mind that there is potential. Why spend 1 month testing something if there's no potential? There is potential. Test it out. Ask for best practices from your support teams, and kind of get into the mentality of always questioning every move you do with launches on different markets.
Awesome. Thank you for that insight. Thank you, everyone. So we have 20